One decision, one rainy morning, one pregnant stranger stranded on the side of the road. Ethan Cole had no idea that stopping to help would cost him everything. His job, his security, his daughter's future. But what he didn't know was that the woman he saved wasn't just anyone. She was about to turn his world upside down in ways he never saw coming. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The windshield wipers on Ethan Cole's aging Honda Civic fought a losing battle against the October downpour. Sheets of rain hammered the glass, turning downtown Chicago into a blur of gray and steel. His watch read 7:42 a.m. 18 minutes. That's all he had to get to Hartwell Industries before Gideon Clark, his supervisor, made good on his final warning. Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel as he merged onto Industrial Boulevard. His mind raced with the same anxious thoughts that had been circling since he woke up. Late twice in 3 weeks, Gideon's red face, the way he'd pointed at the clock like it was evidence in a trial. One more time, Cole. One more time and you're done. The job at Hartwell was everything. Health insurance for Maya. Stability after 2 years of barely keeping their heads above water. A chance to finally breathe. Through the curtain of rain, something caught his eye. Hazard lights blinking orange against the gray. A silver Mercedes pulled over on the shoulder, hood up, steam rising into the cold air, and beside it, a woman, pregnant, heavily pregnant. One hand pressed against her belly, the other holding a phone to her ear. She wore a simple dress, completely soaked through, inappropriate for the weather. Her shoulders hunched against the rain. Her face twisted with distress. Ethan's foot moved toward the gas pedal. Keep driving. You can't afford this. Not today. But she shifted, turning slightly, and the way she touched her stomach, protective, desperate. It hit him like a punch to the chest. Clara, 7 years ago, standing in their tiny apartment bathroom, hand on her own growing belly, eyes bright with joy and terror. His car slowed, then stopped. Ethan grabbed his umbrella from the back seat and stepped into the downpour. The cold rain immediately found every gap in his jacket. He called out, jogging toward her. Are you okay? The woman turned, revealing delicate features and brown eyes wide with worry. Up close, she looked young, early 30s maybe, but there was something in her expression that spoke of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. My car just died, she said, her voice shaking. And this rain, she winced, placing both hands on her belly. I called roadside assistance. They said 45 minutes. 45 minutes in this weather in her condition. Here, Ethan said, holding the umbrella over her. Please sit in my car where it's warm. You shouldn't be standing out here. She hesitated, studying his face with an intensity that made him feel like she was reading his entire life story in a single glance. I don't even know you. Ethan Cole, he said gently. I work at Hartwell Industries, started 3 weeks ago in logistics. I have a daughter, 8 years old. I know how important it is to stay safe when you're pregnant. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but the beginning of it. She nodded and let him guide her to his car. Once inside, Ethan cranked up the heat and handed her some napkins from the glove compartment. His watch read 7:51 a.m. 9 minutes. Thank you, she said, her voice steadier now. She dabbed at her wet face with the napkins. I'm Lydia. When are you due? Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice calm, even as his mind screamed about the minutes ticking away. 6 weeks, Lydia replied, unconsciously rubbing her belly. I was heading to a prenatal appointment when this happened. Ethan noticed the worry lines around her eyes, the way her free hand trembled slightly. "First child?" She nodded, and a shadow crossed her face. "Yes. I've been really careful. Maybe too careful. Taking time off work, following every guideline to the letter, and then this happens." "Cars break down," Ethan said softly. "It's not a sign of anything. You're doing everything right." Lydia looked at him for a long moment. "You're kind. Your wife must appreciate that." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's chest tightened. "My wife passed away 2 years ago. Heart condition, rare, sudden. It's just me and Maya now." Lydia's expression shifted to genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly difficult." "We manage. Maya is strong. Stronger than I was at her age. Stronger than I am now most days." They sat in silence for a moment, rain drumming on the roof like 1,000 tiny fingers. Ethan checked his watch again. 8:02 a.m. His stomach dropped. "You should go," Lydia said, noticing the gesture. "You're late for work." "I'll be fine here." "No," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not leaving a pregnant woman stranded in this weather. My supervisor will have to understand." But even as he said it, he knew Gideon Clark wouldn't understand. Gideon didn't understand anything that didn't fit into his narrow view of the world. Lydia studied him again, and this time there was something different in her gaze. Curiosity, maybe even respect. "Tell me about Maya," she said quietly. Ethan told Lydia about Maya, his little whirlwind of energy and laughter. 8 years old, bright eyes, mischievous smile, always asking questions that made him both proud and exhausted. He talked about her love of painting, how she would stay up past bedtime just to finish a drawing, how she insisted on helping with dinner even if it meant more mess than meal. Lydia listened intently, nodding along, occasionally letting a soft smile slip through. Ethan noticed the way she tensed when he mentioned his late wife, the brief but noticeable flinch. She had empathy, genuine empathy, something rare these days. "I've always admired single parents," Lydia said. "It takes courage, patience, everything." Ethan laughed softly, the sound low and tinged with weariness. "Courage? Maybe. Patience? Occasionally. Everything? That I'm still figuring out." Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, grey clouds beginning to break into streaks of soft morning light. The Mercedes remained stubbornly dead, steam rising from its hood like a small ghost. Ethan pulled out his phone and called a tow service, giving Lydia a reassuring smile. "I'll make sure you get to your appointment," he said. "Even if I have to drive you myself." Lydia hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." "Ethan, was it?" "Cole." "Ethan Cole." He extended his hand, and she shook it briefly, firm but careful, like she was testing whether she could trust him. The tow truck arrived 20 minutes later. Ethan stayed beside Lydia as the driver checked the car, explaining what had gone wrong, how it could be fixed. Ethan offered to follow them to the repair shop, but Lydia declined. She wanted to get to her appointment on time, and the driver promised he could get her there safely. Before she left, Lydia turned to Ethan. "You didn't have to help me. Most people would have just driven by." Ethan shrugged, trying to hide the pride swelling in his chest. "I couldn't. I have a daughter. I know what it's like to need help and not have anyone there." Her eyes softened. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole." And just like that, she was gone, leaving behind only the memory of her presence and the scent of rain on the asphalt. Ethan watched her walk to the tow truck, his mind already racing. He was late for work, and Gideon Clark wouldn't care about any of this. The drive to Hartwell Industries was tense. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel tightly, the image of Lydia and her rounded belly pressed in his mind like a weight. He thought about Maya, about how fragile life could be, how fleeting moments of kindness could ripple through someone's day, their life. When he arrived, Gideon Clark's office door loomed ahead. Red-faced, arms crossed, tapping a gold watch. Ethan swallowed, stepping out of the car. "Cole," Gideon barked, "late again. Do you have a reason this time, or should I start the paperwork?" Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Traffic was bad, sir." "And I helped someone on the side of the road. Pregnant woman, car broke down. I made sure she was safe before coming in." Gideon's expression hardened. "Do I look like I care about your moral crusades, Cole? You're a logistics coordinator, not a Samaritan. This is your final warning." Ethan nodded, swallowing the surge of anger. "Understood, sir. It won't happen again." He stepped inside, heart pounding, thinking of Lydia's grateful eyes, the hand over her belly, and a small, stubborn part of him wishing he had done more, could have done more. The day moved slowly. Paperwork, deliveries, emails. Ethan couldn't shake the image of Lydia from his mind. Every time he glanced at the clock, the memory came back, the rain, her hand, the vulnerability, and the trust she had put in a complete stranger. When he finally left work, the sky had cleared. A golden hue spread across the streets, reflections dancing in puddles. He thought about calling Lydia, checking if she'd made it to her appointment, but hesitated. He didn't even have her number. As he walked to his car, his phone buzzed. A message from Maya. "Daddy, I drew a rainbow today. You have to see it when you get home." Ethan smiled despite everything, slipping the phone into his pocket. Life kept moving, messy, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifyingly beautiful. And somehow, in the middle of that chaos, a stranger in the rain had reminded him what it meant to care, to act, to be human. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window again. Grey clouds hung low, heavy with the promise of more drizzle. He brewed coffee, Maya chattering from the kitchen about her latest painting, and tried to shake off the persistent image of Lydia Cole from his mind. At 10:30, he found himself walking past the cafe where he had dropped her off. Something urged him to go inside, even though he had no excuse. The bell above the door jingled softly as he stepped in, the scent of coffee and baked goods wrapping around him like a familiar hug. And there she was, sitting at a corner table, her laptop open, papers scattered around, focused but clearly exhausted. The grey cardigan she wore hung loosely, almost hiding the roundness of her belly. She looked up briefly, meeting his gaze, and for a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them. "Lydia?" he asked softly, walking over. She blinked, startled, then smiled faintly. "Ethan, you early. I didn't mean to startle you. I just wanted to make sure you got home safely yesterday. Everything okay?" She nodded, closing her laptop. "Yes, everything. Car's being fixed. Appointment went fine. Thank you again for helping me." He hesitated, then pulled out a small paper bag. I brought you some pastries. Thought you might like a proper breakfast today, not just paperwork and instant coffee." Lydia laughed, the sound warm and soft. "You really have a way of turning a simple act into something memorable, don't you?" They talked quietly, the conversation tentative at first, then easier. Ethan learned that Lydia was an editor for a local publishing house, passionate about children's books and determined to make time for her growing family. She asked about Maya, about the challenges of parenting alone. Ethan answered honestly, sometimes joking, sometimes with quiet pride, and found himself laughing more than he had in weeks. When the cafe filled with morning bustle, Ethan glanced at his watch. Work awaited, responsibilities called, yet he couldn't leave. Not yet. Can I see you again? He asked, unsure how to frame the request. Maybe, tomorrow. Lydia hesitated, fingers tightening slightly around her coffee cup. Tomorrow. I think that could work. But only for a short while. I have so much to do. Short while is fine, he said quickly, not wanting to scare her off. I don't want to overstep. The conversation drifted to lighter things, favorite books, shared memories of rainy days, Maya's latest obsession with rainbows and unicorns. Ethan found himself drawn to her laughter, to the ease that came when she was simply talking about things she loved. When it was finally time to leave, he felt a tug of disappointment. Same time tomorrow, he asked as he stood. Same time tomorrow, Lydia agreed, a soft smile lingering. Ethan stepped out into the drizzle, heart lighter than it had been in months. For the first time in a long while, he felt the possibility of connection, of something more than just the chaos of daily life and responsibilities. Back at home, Maya greeted him at the door with a wide grin, holding up her rainbow drawing proudly. Ethan ruffled her hair, smiling. Life was messy, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but maybe, just maybe, there was space in it for more than duty and routine. The next day, the drizzle had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shiny under the pale morning sun. Ethan arrived at the cafe a few minutes early, heart thumping with anticipation. He spotted Lydia already there, perched at the same corner table, laptop open and a half-drunk coffee beside her. She looked up and smiled, a little shyly this time. "Morning," he said, sliding into the seat opposite her. "Morning," she replied, eyes flicking to his. There was a warmth there, a softness he hadn't noticed before. They spent the next hour talking, laughter spilling easily now, the initial awkwardness replaced with familiarity. Ethan learned that Lydia was balancing multiple projects at work, including a children's book series she had been nurturing for months. He shared snippets of his day, stories about Maya, the small victories and the little disasters of single parenthood. At one point, Lydia reached over and nudged his hand lightly. "I think you've set a new bar for kindness," she said, eye sparkling. Not many people would show up again so soon. Ethan shrugged, cheeks warming. "I guess I just like helping. Especially when someone's having a rough patch." Their conversation wandered naturally, touching on favorite childhood memories, little quirks about the city, and dreams for the future. Ethan found himself noticing the curve of Lydia's smile, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about things she loved, the faint laugh lines around her eyes. There was a quiet beauty in her presence, a gentle strength that tugged at him. When the morning crowd started thickening, Ethan reluctantly glanced at his watch. "I should probably get going." "Work, you know." Lydia nodded, closing her laptop. "I understand. But would you like to walk a little before heading off?" The rains left the streets glistening. "It's kind of nice." He agreed, and they walked together, the city calm and reflective after the rain. Small talk turned into shared laughter, and before long, they found themselves pausing in front of a small bookstore. "I've been meaning to visit this place for ages," Lydia said, eyes bright. "Want to come in?" Inside, the smell of books enveloped them. They wandered the aisles, chatting quietly about titles, authors, and stories that had shaped them. At the children's section, Ethan noticed Lydia's gaze linger on a collection of picture books. I think Maya would love these, she murmured, holding up a brightly illustrated volume. Ethan nodded, smiling. We'll get it for her next week. She'll be thrilled. As they left the store, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the city. Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't expected, a sense of possibility that went beyond friendship or routine. He glanced at Lydia, catching her in a moment of laughter, and felt something shift inside him, hope, connection, maybe even the beginnings of something more. When they parted outside her building, Ethan hesitated, wanting to say more but unsure what. Lydia leaned slightly closer and whispered, "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," he confirmed, heart-soaring. He walked away, feeling lighter, aware that his life had taken a small but significant turn. There were challenges ahead, but for the first time, he felt that he didn't have to face them alone. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of healing, hope, and the slow rebuilding of trust. Ethan found himself spending more time at Lydia's apartment, helping with groceries, cooking meals she barely touched, and sitting with her during sleepless nights. They didn't speak much at first. Sometimes, silence was the only language that made sense. But slowly, carefully, they began to talk. About losses, regrets, and the faint glimmer of hope that maybe life could still be kind. One crisp morning, Lydia allowed Ethan to bring his daughter, Mia, along. The little girl, just 8, approached cautiously, her eyes wide but fearless. She climbed onto Lydia's sofa without hesitation and wrapped her small arms around her, humming a tune she had made up in the car. "Daddy says your baby went to heaven, and Mommy's there too. She's taking care of him," Mia whispered. Lydia let the tears fall freely this time, feeling something soften in her chest. The weight of grief hadn't disappeared, but it felt lighter with these small acts of connection. Ethan watched them, a strange mix of awe and relief settling over him. He realized that sometimes family wasn't just blood, it was the people who chose to stay, who chose to care even when life had dealt its harshest blows. And Lydia, strong and broken all at once, was slowly letting herself be held, slowly letting herself trust again. Months passed. Lydia returned to work, cautiously, carefully. She left at reasonable hours, took breaks, and allowed Ethan to step in when exhaustion threatened. The professional boundary between them blurred over time, and soon coffee meetings turned into shared dinners. Conversations about contracts turned into conversations about dreams, about fears, about love. One quiet evening, 6 months after losing her child, Lydia paused in her office, looking at Ethan with a gaze that spoke of vulnerability and courage in equal measure. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted softly. "Do what?" Ethan asked, stepping closer. "Trust again. Open my heart again. Believe that maybe, just maybe, something good can happen without it being taken away." Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Start small. One day at a time. One moment of trust at a time. We'll do it together." Lydia's hazel eyes searched his, and slowly, she leaned in. The kiss was tentative, careful, but full of promise. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I'm broken." "We're all broken," Ethan replied. "But maybe our broken pieces fit together." The months that followed were slow and gentle. First dates were cautious, filled with laughter and awkward jokes. Mia adjusted easily, her infectious joy bringing light into moments that had once been heavy with sorrow. Together, the three of them built a fragile but resilient family, learning to navigate loss, love, and second chances. 1 year after that rainy October morning, Ethan knew it was time. He asked Lydia to meet him in her office, the same office where their trust had first begun to rebuild. Mia hid behind the desk, barely containing her giggles. Ethan knelt, holding out a simple diamond ring. "Lydia Cross, a year and a few months ago, you changed my life. You gave me hope, you gave me love, and you gave me a chance to believe again. Will you marry me?" "Yes." Lydia sobbed. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Mia leapt from behind the desk, squealing. "Can I be the flower girl?" "Yes, you promised," Ethan said, laughing through his tears. The wedding was small, intimate, and perfect. Mia walked down the aisle with the seriousness of a tiny adult. Lydia wore a cream dress, and Ethan couldn't take his eyes off the woman who had turned tragedy into hope. The rain fell gently outside, cleansing the city as if to bless the new beginning inside. Months later, a miracle. Lydia discovered she was pregnant again. Ethan held her hands as she whispered the news, fear and hope mingling in her eyes. "We're not alone this time," he said, smiling. "We'll face it together." When the day came, the birth was calm, natural, full of love. A healthy baby boy arrived, and the family of 3, or now 4, celebrated in quiet joy. They named him Lucas, honoring the life they had lost and the hope they had gained. On rainy October evenings, Ethan would sit on the couch with Lydia, Mia curled between them, Lucas sleeping in his bassinet. The rain was no longer a symbol of despair but a reminder that life, with all its storms, could bring growth, healing, and love. Sometimes, all it took was one choice, one moment of courage, and a stranger's hand extended in kindness. And in return, the life you built could be more than survival, it could be home. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this.